I lost everybody, all my family. I lost 55 years. I lost possibly two different careers that I could have followed. I lost them, but I found me. I went from being a great mom to pretty evil, really. He basically said that in the email is I'm going to spare my girls the pain of ever knowing you.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't choose to lose my whole family. But now that I did, I have to choose how I'm going to deal with it. When my son was about 17 years old, this pedophile approached him. The elders beat my husband and I up for calling the police. They were still allowing him to pray, give talks. I started drowning myself in alcohol because I just couldn't handle it. I haven't read this in a while. Last time I read it, I cried. So let's hope I'm tougher this time. And what I wrote was,
Do you think there was actually any benefit to being a woman in the organization?
I think as a woman, it taught me that I don't want to be held down as a woman.
Would you tell your younger self?
I would tell myself to listen to what's inside. That's your truth. Every single day I'm dying, more staying there. My spirit has been crushed in the past, and I was made for more than this. I know I was. It's time for me to be happy, forgive myself for the past, and grow, and not stop growing. Not stop reaching to be all that I can be, all I know I deserve to be, and not feel guilty about it.
I have this incredible guest with me. She's an ex-Jehovah's Witness who woke up when she was 55 years old during the pandemic. And now she's an intuitive and authenticity coach who is also NLP certified. She's now on her mission to help others on their healing journey and to find their authentic self. She's also someone who I admired since I met her. It's my pleasure to introduce Lori Klein because she's a great example to everyone that it's never too late to restart your life. Lori, how are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
So, for everyone in our audience today, could you just share what your Jehovah's Witness background is?
Yeah, so I am a fourth generation on both sides. So like my great grandparents on my dad's side were the ones that started studying first. They were like Russellites, like they studied in the beginning. Then my dad's dad um was from Greece originally, and he came here to America and landed in Pennsylvania, of all places, and we know what's there was Russell and everything, and started studying. And so then he married my grandmother. So both sides of my dad's family have that. My grandmother started studying with my mom when she was a little girl, promising her the paradise and everything. And so then my mom came in, married my dad, and then the rest is history. So on both sides, I am actually fourth on my mom's, fourth on my dad's. So it it goes pretty deep.
Yeah.
Grandfather claimed to be of the anointed. So they said I had a very rich spiritual heritage, of course. That was supposed to be something to be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. Fourth
Yeah,
generation Jehovah's Witness. Did you mention you had kids in the organization as well?
absolutely. So I got married to an elder who actually passed away in 2004 and have two children who are now grown children. My husband was awesome. He was probably one of the best elders, if not the best elder, quite honestly, hands down, I've ever met in my life. And I'm not being biased about that. He had a really good heart. He was one of those elders everybody wanted to talk to if they had a problem. They always called our house. But yeah, so I have a daughter and a son. They're still in, not, they don't speak to me. My most of my family's in, like 90% of my family are witnesses. So they don't speak to me. My mom doesn't speak to me. Between my children, I have four grandchildren who I'm not allowed to see.
Wow.
So my son, he just cut me off like in November. He was kind of bucking the system for a while, and my daughter was just adamant about him not speaking to me. So she finally got to him. He went to visit her last summer with his wife and the girls, and when he came home, that was it. Like he just cut me off in an email. I went from being a great mom to, you know, I pretty evil, really. He basically said that in the email is I'm gonna spare my girls the pain of ever knowing you. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was like overnight, like that just changed. So he clearly, somebody got to him.
So you're fourth generation Jehovah's Witness. You were in it for decades. You were married to an elder. You had children. You have children in the organization. What was the turning point that made you decide to leave the organization? Even though there was a lot of consequences because you were fourth generation Jehovah's Witness, you had children in the organization, your entire family of generations was in the organization. What was that turning point for you, Lori?
So I'll give you a tiny bit of a background on it. To what it actually started when my son was about 17 years old. I was fully in, and he was a whistleblower on a pedophile in our congregation. Thank goodness that he was not affected the way the other boys were. I'm grateful for that. But this pedophile approached him in a way that he immediately actually kicked and hit the guy. This guy was a ministerial servant at a gathering. And so when he told me that, I immediately started calling all the parents. Bottom line is, this guy went to prison for 3 life sentences plus 60 years. This guy was a ministerial servant. The elders beat my husband and I up for doing all this. Basically, we're constantly reprimanding us for, calling the police, getting all the other families involved, blah blah blah. So that was a crack in my foundation, because I felt like, wait a minute, like this guy's a pedophile. Why are we being punished basically for, what we're trying to do to stop this? They were still allowing him to pray, give talks. It had all started coming out, and they were still letting him do this. So that was the first crack in my foundation. I started drowning myself in alcohol because I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle this cognitive dissonance that was going on inside of me of like, no, I know it's the truth, but no, this is wrong. And so I just started, I drank and drank and drank. And honestly, I wasn't really a big drinker. Like I really wasn't in my whole life. And it kind of started getting, it started getting out of control. So I basically asked for help, thinking I'm praying, right? I'm asking for help. I got to stop drinking. I got to change this. I can't, deal with it. Well, I got this answer on my Facebook page of a group that was for women only to help with what they call gray area drinking. So I joined it. I stopped drinking all by myself. No help from the congregation. No help from nothing, right? So then I started thinking, like, well, what else is out there? Like, if I'm getting these answers and they're not coming from the congregation, what's next? So my next thing was, I read a book by Rachel Hollis, and it was called Girl Wash Your Face. And that was it. She had something called a Rise conference for all women. It was in Toronto. Here I am. I'm still a preemie. I'm still physically in, mentally in at this point. And I said to my husband, who I didn't know was a PMO at the time, I want to go to this conference. And he said, go. So I bought a ticket, flew to Toronto all by myself, never been there before, sat in a room with 4,000 other women, and did 3 days of this conference. And then basically they gave me a journal, which, if you want me to, I can read a little bit of like what kind of, I think, broke it open for me and keep it. Because like, I haven't read this in a while. Last time I read it, I cried. So let's hope I'm tougher this time. But if you don't care, I'll read to you.
Please, please.
So I was sitting, so they gave us this whole book that divided it up the days into past, present, and future. And she basically said, okay, I'm gonna dim the lights, put some calming music on, and I want everybody to empty their mind. Now, what are we taught in the organization? No meditation, no yoga. Don't empty your mind. Don't open that mind up, because what's going to happen? So I've always been very fearful of doing that. And I wasn't even like, I was never even honest with myself for my whole life. So for the first time in my life, I allowed myself to do it. And what I wrote was, I know that this is not what I was raised to believe. I realize I've always been told that I need to stay in this small area. I'm supposed to be allowed to be in. Like, I have to stay in this small area, which is the organization that, I'm allowed to be part of. But I'm dying there. Every single day I'm dying more staying there. My spirit has been crushed in the past, and I was made for more than this. I know I was. It's time for me to be happy, forgive myself for the past, and grow, and not stop growing. Not stop reaching to be all that I can be, all I know I deserve to be, and not feel guilty about it. And it was like a light bulb went on. Like I sat there writing this out, and like I was kind of shocked. My mouth kind of like just like, what did I just write? Like I allowed myself to, for the first time, be super honest with myself and tell myself that my spirit's crushed. I can't. And I knew if I went home and stayed in the organization and kept going, that I just can't do it anymore. I couldn't. So something happened in that moment, and now I know what my belief system is, so I understand what happened, but back then I didn't know. So I flew home and I told my husband, I said, I need you to read this. And so he did, and he was already PMO, so he was ready to, a week after I flew home from Toronto, they shut the borders. So it was COVID, it was pandemic. And so everything shut down. I never went to another meeting in person from that day forward because everything went to Zoom, and then we faded. So that was it. It was over.
It's similar experience
I
as
know.
mine,
I
and
know.
it's just so crazy. I share this experience with you. Mine was a Tony Robbins seminar,
Yeah.
and that was my
Yep.
first
Yeah.
time just allowing myself to be open and to just surrender to
Yeah.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
There's something about those events. I think it's just the introduction to meditation. And we know meditation and mindfulness is just going back home to you. You need
Mm-hmm.
to, because
Oh yeah. Yeah.
you're so influenced by so many things that you're going to be pulled in so many different directions. You need to be able to have your own authentic compass, basically, to make your own
Right.
decisions, right? Your intuition. But we
Yeah.
were always taught that that's very treacherous.
Oh yeah. Very bad. Very scary. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that was the thing, is like, because we were always fighting this, our authenticity is always going against or pushing against the conformity, but it's going to break.
Right.
It's going to break because if the cognitive dissonance is so painful. And I think our authenticity is just always stronger than conformity if we allow it. When you were in the organization, growing up in the organization, how did the teachings impact you as a woman or your potential?
Well, first I wanted to go to college, which I did start college back after high school because my dad paid for me to go to school up in Michigan. But then the guilt and shame kicks in, and my mom had written me letters because I was living with my dad at the time, and she lived in Florida, and how I should be pursuing spiritual goals, and the world's only gonna chew me up and spit me out, and Satan is just gonna drop me, and one day it's gonna be so you believe that, you get scared. And I think that it definitely affected me to the point where I didn't believe in myself because I just didn't think I kept being told that I wasn't spiritual minded and I wasn't strong. So I kept thinking, like, what's the point then? Like, I mean, here we are, like, spinning our wheels in the organization. And yet I wanted to, back then, I really wanted to go to law school. I wanted to be an attorney. I think I envied every single woman as I got older that was successful, and independent. I would see women that were independent, and my insides, I'm going, I'm independent though. I can do this. No, I can't. So it kept shoving me back down again to, no, you're supposed to be spiritual. You're supposed to live up to your spiritual heritage that you have. And so that impacted me a lot.
It sounds like you had a lot of pressure from your
Tons,
spiritual. Yeah.
tons. It caused a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. I learned to be fearful. Like I was afraid of everything.
Yeah, because that's all you kind of known.
Hmm.
You didn't know anything else because you were born into the religion, and your entire family of generations, just layers and layers and layers of people around you that were just indoctrinated, that just
Yeah,
believed. And I think that really just emphasized to a fault that you should stay in the pack.
right. I think another thing that it did, and to everybody that's listening to my dog walk around that needs his nails cut on the floor here, that's what you're hearing, is it made me doubt my own instincts and inner voice, which I had very strong gut instincts and a very strong inner voice that would tell me things. But I mean, I totally ignored them,
Hmm.
because they taught you that you couldn't do anything without them and without Jehovah.
Yeah. And
So
I think they also said the heart is treacherous.
yeah. So anything that I felt with my heart was like scary, because who owns your heart really? Like, and they'd say that all the time, right? I mean, who, oh God, now I have a Kingdom song stuck in my head. I
What is
won't
that
sing it.
kingdom? Oh,
The
okay.
one, the one to whom do you belong?
Oh yeah.
Which God will you obey? And like they made you feel like it was this do or die, one side or the other, like fight all the time. And so because I felt comfortable on the one side that was not the organization, that struggle, I think it instilled a lot of fear in me. Like, why? In fact, I remember several times even praying and saying, why does Satan want me so bad? Why does he keep coming after me? Because clearly I want these other things, and they weren't bad things. They were just like, life. I wanted to go to school and I wanted to have friends, and I mean, I was fairly, like, I don't know if you call it popular or whatever, but in school, like, I had friends, so I didn't have a
They were
problem making friends.
distractions. They were spiritual distractions.
To the congregation they
Yeah.
were,
Yeah.
so, but I wanted that, and I felt comfortable with them. And so, I mean, it was always a struggle. So it caused a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, I bet. It sounds like because you had that intuition I think that's always fighting with the conformity, because you yourself know kind of, even at the time, even though there was conflict, you kind of knew who you were, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, in retrospect,
yeah.
when you look back now, I look back and I go, I did know who I was, and I did know what I wanted to be, and I did see things clearly.
Yeah. So
But when
do you think that your authenticity deep down was kind of screaming, like,
Oh, it was since I was very young. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
But now you're building your new life, and you have a career now that's so different from your past life. For people who are just waking up, how did your transition from being an ex-Jehovah's Witness to starting your career happen?
So in the very beginning, when I woke up, I started reading and kind of trying to familiarize myself with how life really worked. Because, when you're raised as a witness, basically you don't really even know how anything works. You don't know how politics works. You don't really know, how education works. You don't know how relationships are supposed to work, because everything was kind of planned out for us, right? So I started reading a lot, and the more I read, the more I realized, like, I always felt like I liked helping people, but it was kind of misguided and misdirected, I guess, in the organization with like service and studies and all that. That I didn't feel comfortable with, but I always still felt like I liked helping people. So I ended up just finding my school, it's in Toronto, where I became certified and as a life coach. And because of the pandemic, they were doing it online. And I'm grateful for that because I'd never met these people. It's all very like, it's a spiritual based, and I don't mean religious, I mean spiritual based, metaphysical, quantum, that kind of stuff. It's something that really drew me in. I really loved it, and I've always felt that way. What was always told it was bad and wrong and scary, and demons and all that crazy stuff. So it is all quantum and NLP. And so I just started that, and it was live, obviously online. So they chose a student to do the first exercise with, like, the first modality that you would use on your clients. It's called a detailed discovery session. And they said, okay, we're going to pick one client. So everybody write down your story and, send it to us. And we're going to pick one client to do that. Well, my story was craziness, so they were like, okay, we picked Lori because, I mean, she came out of a religious cult, and like she's totally changed everything. So that was, here it was 55 years, and I really couldn't be authentic. So after that 6 weeks, mind blown. And I mean, it was just incredible. And here, so then I decided to continue on with my training and become master certified, just based on the effects that it had on me. I mean, 55 years and losing my entire family. And this definitely totally broke me out of not being authentic. And I immediately started to just go in the direction I always wanted to go in. And so that's kind of how I transitioned.
So Lori, you mentioned earlier that I think in our previous conversation together, that part of your practice is oracle cards, spirit guides, and spiritual energy. So for those ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who might be even interested or even have that inclination to look into that type of stuff, but of course, as Jehovah's Witnesses, we are always taught that all of that stuff is demon, right? Coming from Satan, or it's bad, bad, bad. Right. How were you able to lessen the fear or even deprogram that indoctrination from your subconscious mind? Because now it's something that you practice, it's something that you help other people on their healing journey.
Because we were taught that anything that wasn't Jehovah was demons. I had a very, very, very bad fear of demons. My mom was horrified of demons. Like, she had us horrified all the time. So I just started reading all kinds of things, and I just started realizing how life really works. And I mean, I had a very, very bad fear of them. Like, I couldn't sleep a lot. I couldn't sleep in a room by myself until a couple of years ago. That's the truth. Without being horribly afraid. Once that fear went away, it was like, what is there to be afraid of? But when I had the fear, I heard noises in the night. I felt things. Because when you're in a fear, I actually have a chart right now, so I'm trying to even think about this chart that I have, but it's a frequency chart, energetic frequency. This is like scientifically, you probably have seen this, but like fear is down. The energetic frequency of fear is 100. Okay, it's an actual energetic frequency, like a radio station or whatever, is at 100. Love is at 500. Peace is at 600. Enlightenment, you get to gurus and all those people are way up in the thousands. So think about it, like, you're way down in fear, which is 100. That's where your frequency is. We all have a frequency and we all tune into whatever. That's why you're attracted to different people and attracted to different groups. That's why you outgrow. When you leave the organization, you literally outgrow those kind of people. You find yourself going like, I can't even be in a room with them anymore. Why? Because your frequency raised. So now you're attracted to other people that are like you, that make you feel comfortable.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. So when you're in the frequency of fear, guess what's there? Any energy that's that low, of course there's bad energy. There's bad energy, there's good energy. There's different levels of energy and frequencies. So it's like a radio station. You tune into what your frequency is putting out. So when you're scared all the time and you're full of anxiety,
which we were when we were,
which I was,
me too.
And it's worth noting that shame and guilt are literally 20 and 30 in the frequency level. 20 and 30. They're the lowest on the totem pole. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're in like shame and guilt, you have like, you're in such a low state. Your body, literally, this is a scientifically proven, frequency. Your body is so low. And that's what they kept us in. They kept us in guilt and shame. That's all we knew: guilt, shame, and then fear.
Wow.
So it was like, when you're kept in that for so many years, I mean, obviously you're attracting other frequencies, which, I mean, fear is that attracts all kinds of, different low energy, I do believe there's low energy beings, don't get me wrong. I just don't believe they're demons, but I mean, religion has termed something that you should be afraid of, and that it's always there. Well, that's not true. You
Mm-hmm.
outgrow your frequency and it gets higher, you also outgrow that.
Wow.
So once you outgrow that, I mean, look, the sky's the limit, right? So
Yeah.
like right now, like love, joy, peace, you're talking about frequency levels of 500, 540, 600. You can't, you're not anywhere near the fear or the guilt or the shame anymore. You can't mix with it anymore, the frequency. So it's not even around you anymore.
Yeah.
So
Which is very interesting because in the religion, they they preach love
yeah.
because they package it so nicely in peace, hope, and paradise. But in reality, underneath that is really fear, shame, and guilt.
And here's the thing though, like, to keep somebody controlled, which it's a high control religion. So to keep you controlled, you cannot really allow anyone to get into the frequency of love, because you can't control them. So like for me right now, my whole family, they don't have anything to do with me. My children, my grandchildren, none of them, right? I'm still happy as a person, because you can't control someone that really lives in that higher frequency. You can't, you can't guilt them or shame them or push them into doing something they don't want to do anymore. I can't be pushed anymore. So once we're out of that and we keep growing, we can't be pushed. It's like leaving this box. Like the Jack in the Box that came out. You can't be pushed back in the box now. So once you're above and beyond that, and I'm sure there's things in life that can push you back down again. Sure, you can lose that. You can go back down again. I don't know why you'd want to, but I mean,
Jehovah's Witnesses, though, it's all based on emotion, and that emotion
right.
is fear. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. People don't realize that. And people do go back because I think because of fear and because of pride. They have so much potential to come out, and maybe they do want to come out, but it's their pride that holds them back.
And having emotion, I mean, it's not a bad thing, obviously. I
No,
mean, like, it was hard for me to get through what I read because my emotions kicked in. So emotions are good.
right.
It's just the kind of emotions that came with the organization were
Mm-hmm.
only there to control us and
Exactly.
keep us down, because allowing us to really be who that's why they didn't want us to be anybody. That's why they went, don't go to school, don't do this, don't do that, because education
Mm-hmm.
breaks their little spell that they have on everybody. And now, before you know it, you're out, and you're realizing what you were part of, and you learn how life really works. Then they can't
Mm-hmm.
keep you in that fear anymore. They can't keep you in the guilt, the shame, all that. So they lost.
Yeah. And you mentioned education because you actually went back to school.
I did.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Now I'm going back to school for psychology.
I went back to school to finish my psychology degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
awesome.
we have so much in common.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but whatever we do is always seems to be about just serving people. But what's different now is that we're serving people with our gifts, with our
Right.
passion, with our values, with our purpose. I want to ask you because you're so driven. I'm just wondering, do you think there was actually any benefit to being a woman in the organization? And did you find any of your JW practice actually beneficial to your to thriving in your career? I asked the woman question is because women were always treated very unfairly.
Right.
And we were very hard workers, but we never get the titles and statuses or privileges. So I'm wondering,
Well,
was that
so
actually beneficial? Like
I mean,
transfer.
okay, well, here's the way I actually look at life.
Mm-hmm.
I actually believe, I truly believe that every single thing in life is beneficial
Mm-hmm.
because life is a lesson.
Yes.
So every single thing that happens to us is a lesson. What did we learn from it? Like I literally have done exercises for myself and also told my clients, to help my clients write it down. I literally had to write down on paper, what have I gained from not ever being able to see my grandson again, who I was just connected to when the second he was born. But it's surprising when you start writing what it taught me. And if you do that with everything in your life and sometimes it really helps put it on paper and you write down what you have learned and how you can use it to benefit you, you've switched that narrative up, right? Oh, this happened to me. Oh, boo-hoo. It's really messed my life up. It took 55 years away from me. Yeah, it did. It really did. But you know what? It taught me how to fast track the rest of my life. And so my time in the organization, I believe, taught me a lot. It did teach me to be very organized. As a woman, it's kind of a hard question because, like, as a woman, what did it teach me? I think as a woman, it taught me that I don't want to be held down as a woman. I don't really know the answer to that one. I guess the lesson is how to use my voice, even if I'm
Mm-hmm.
afraid. That was the lesson. When you think about it, like I used my voice anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It hurt, but I used my voice anyway. It taught me that. It taught me that even because I did it a lot when I was in the organization and I got this fellowship twice and I was in back rooms and that kind of thing. But I used my voice, you know, and really they trained us to use our voice just in a different way. They trained us to go door to door and be bold and be brave and now I'm using that in a different way
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not being bold and brave for them anymore. I'm being bold and brave for me and for what I want to do for the rest of my life. But they did teach us that. I mean,
Absolutely.
they did. So I worked for a law firm for 4 months and just got let go because I opened my mouth when I shouldn't have to the HR person who turned out to be very toxic and they let me go. They didn't like it. They let me go find a manager job. But what do you learn from something when it happens? Like there's always going to be something that you're going to learn, and sometimes it's going to suck what you have to learn from it. Really, it is. Like maybe sometimes it's a mirror into you what you don't want to see, but it does teach you something. It literally they didn't realize it, but it taught us to use our voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
They taught
I
us how to talk. They taught us
mm-hmm.
how to go door to door.
There's so many benefits to being AJW. We just have to, again, like you said, view it as lessons, not as weapons. Because when we start viewing it as weapons, we start getting bitter.
Well, we
And
become a victim when we do
a
that.
victim, yeah.
Yeah, we put ourselves in victim mode when we start saying, "Oh, look at." I mean, think about it. I could right now sit around the house all day saying, "Look how much I've lost. I lost everybody, all my family. I lost 55 years. I lost possibly two different careers that I could have followed, and could have probably had a practice at least doing one of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, I look at life like there's a reason for it. There's got to be a good reason. You can turn it into a good reason. I'm not saying there's a good reason for everything because clearly, people get very hurt
Mm-hmm.
and they lose a lot of time and they lose family and I'm not making light of that because I definitely lost all that too. But what do we make of it? How do we look at it now? I actually look at it with the glass half full because I'm grateful that I now have my freedom
Mm.
and authenticity and peace. I lost them, but I found me. And, as maybe some people would say, well, how do you even say something like that? Like you lost your whole family. I didn't choose to lose my whole family. But now that I did, I have to choose how I'm going to deal with it. And
I
I'm not
love that.
angry. I'm
I
not
love that.
angry at any of them. I forgave them for what they've done to me. They don't know any better.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what we have to remember when we leave the organization. We were the same.
Mm-hmm.
We touched people too, and we stayed away from, worldly people or disfellowship people or spiritually weak people. We did that. I did,
Mm-hmm.
especially being married to an elder, like, we did it too, because that's all we knew. So now that we're out, it's easy to look at them and say, well, how can you ignore me like this and keep forgetting that
We were
that's
like
all they
that too.
know.
That's all they know, yeah. And do you feel more in alignment with your profession now?
It's funny because a really good friend of mine who's a psychic and very intuitive, very very spiritual. And what's weird is we met in a spiritual group, and she turned out to be an XJW.
Oh,
Had
wow.
no, yeah, she's not in any of the groups or anything, and we
Mm.
became like instant friends. Like it was like, but she asked me that, are you in alignment with what you're doing in your life coaching? And I'm like, because I was like starting to dread it. Like I was starting to dread having clients and everything, because the type of clients I were in like the victim mentality too much, and they didn't want to come out of it, and it wasn't matching what I was wanting in a client, but I wasn't really sure what to do with that. So she said, are you in alignment with your coaching? I'm like, I don't know. Like I don't really feel 100% in it. That's why I've been pushing it back for the last year. And she said, what do you want to do? Like, what do and it was like, well, if I had my choice. And then I heard myself say that, if I had my choice. Like, yes, I have my choice. I would incorporate spirituality with it. I would incorporate working with my guides and helping people to find out where their blocks are. And I'm going to add my hypnotherapy in. And I'm also taking a course in art therapy. I love art. It's a passion. I have an art studio in the house, and I've made pottery and all that. So I wanted to incorporate that into life coaching somehow. I know that helps a lot. So I'm gonna start taking that course probably next week. Go through those modules and then get certified in that. So I think I'm gonna have like a whole menu of things to help people with, but at the same time, it makes me happy.
Yeah, and that's what's more like, that's
Yeah,
what's so important is that you're adding, but it's in alignment with who you are. And it really
exactly.
does reflect in how it impacts the customer too, your clients.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you're happy in what you're doing, they're going to know. If you're not, they're going to know that too.
They're going to feel
So
that energy. But
they're
I'm
going
so
to feel
happy
it.
that, and that's what our freedom allows us to do, is to just choose, right? It's just to
Right.
just choose.
Sorry, I was going to say that was a really big deal for me, literally just this last couple of weeks,
Mm,
was admitting to myself that it's okay to open up my life coaching more intuitively and to do the things spiritually that I want to do. What was holding me back was, what if my son sees my website and he's not speaking to me, but what if he was going to? And then I started telling myself, Lori, look, you
mm,
can't change him or my daughter or my mom or anybody else that's walked away from me. You can't keep being someone that you're not, because they're gone. You can't change that. And even if they looked and said, oh my gosh, now she's getting involved with, what they would consider, whatever they consider demons or
yeah,
whatever,
demons.
then I'm not being true to myself. So what? So I mean, what am I gaining if I'm not true to myself? Because they're gonna walk away, whether I am into this or not into this. They're still not speaking to me. And
Hmm.
if that's the one thing that they said, well, maybe I'd speak to her, but now I saw her website. No, you weren't. No, that's it's all conditional again,
All
and I don't
conditional.
want to live in that conditional love world ever again. I just can't. I'm not there anymore. And I you can't go back once you feel unconditional like love from people.
Hmm.
Like even you and I, what we experienced at the Empowered Minds conference in
Oh yeah.
Boston, that was like
That was a
amazing.
moment.
We've
That
never
was a
met
moment.
before.
I
Oh, it
know.
really was. Like, and we made that connection, like we felt it. But you
We
can't
did.
replace that kind of stuff. I mean, you just can't, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So
It's a good way to reframe those negative emotions, especially when you've already developed a lot of this practice of showing yourself unconditional love, and now you know and feel what conditional love is. You don't want to go back to that.
you can't. it's like water and oil at that point. Like you can't, it doesn't mix anymore.
Even
It
if
just
it's your
feels,
family and friends, because it's conditions.
yeah,
It's what it is.
yeah,
It's contractual.
yeah,
They
yeah.
only want a version of you that's part of their identity.
Right. You know, and I mean, the thing that blows my mind is when we're out
They
and
don't want the real version of Lori. It's
no,
too
they don't want the real version. And the funny thing is, we don't look at them that way. Like I would never say to my kids, you can't do what you want.
right.
I won't love you if you do what you want. Because I mean, let's face it, they were witnesses and I didn't cut them off. They cut me off.
Mhm.
I didn't tell them that, hey, I'm gonna cut you off because you are a witness, because I completely disagree with your belief system now. They're the ones that cut me off. So they're the ones that, they'll tell you they love you and they'll tell you, oh, but if you just come back, that's their
Mm,
whole, it's all conditional.
unfortunately, and we just have to respect it.
Mm-hmm.
And but
Yeah.
on the other side of us, we have to thrive because we
Right.
have to be an example of living the best life ever or living your
Yeah.
true self. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they tell you once you leave, and this is so funny. I was just telling my husband this yesterday. I said, it's funny because they would say, once you get out, once you leave, Satan's going to get a hold of you, and he's going to dump you, and as soon as he has your fill and he gets you to do what he wants. And I said to my husband, well, so far Satan's a pretty cool dude if that's true, because I'm going to tell you something. I never felt so much peace and calm and happiness and all my entire life, I'm not exaggerating that, than I have since I've been out of that organization. I'm not seeing the whole like negative of this, but when you're conditioned to believe it, sure, everything bad that happens in the beginning when you leave, you go, that's because, if you still believe the way they taught you, that's because I left and, whatever. I honestly, and this is a little odd, but I think I'm kind of a minority here in this, but once I left, my mentality, I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't afraid of like, oh, if I do this, this will happen, or if I do, I just wasn't. I like a light bulb. Like when I read that and told you that once I was out, I was out. It didn't really take long for me to transition.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why, because I know some people are like that. Some people just take a long time, and there's no right or wrong to it.
Right.
Maybe it's because I knew that I was older, and quite literally, I don't have the years that like, someone your age or younger has when they leave. I don't, I'm 60, so almost, so like I don't have 40 more years to say, hey, I want to learn this or I want to learn that.
Mm,
Look, I got to catch up.
right.
So maybe that's why, because like I just knew I had to like,
I I know that feeling that you're talking about because I had that same exact feeling. And once I felt that release of like because I was depressed in the organization when I
me
was
too, yeah,
no one wants to be unhappy. Like if
right.
Jehovah knows that you're unhappy, if he can read your heart, then like to me it just didn't make sense. Like
Mm-mm. Yeah,
so
why would
so
you want to
the
be there? Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
I'm like, well, I just don't want to be an unhappy servant. And I have already prayed and studied and doing
yeah,
all this stuff. I'm pioneering. So what's the point? I don't understand why do I still feel this way?
yeah,
And that's when I attended one of those seminars that you had mentioned. And just allowing myself to navigate or introduce myself to myself. It was just
yeah,
I was just like, hold up,
yeah,
hold up.
yeah,
I'm feeling something, I don't know what it is. And I
yeah,
think it was hope. I wasn't happy, but I was hopeful. And I
yeah,
was like, whatever this new hope is, I don't care. I'm going to take the risk and I am just going to see where this takes me because this feels so much better than depression. Yeah. And
because
because of the, go ahead.
no, I was just to say you start to be in alignment all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, like
It
with
is.
yourself.
Yeah.
Like all of a
Yeah.
sudden you start like, yeah,
It's just, you're
yeah,
coming back.
yeah, it
You're
just starts.
literally
Yep.
coming back to you. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of work, but that was an introduction. That whole meditation thing, I believe to me personally, it was an introduction to myself.
Yeah.
It was a moment of hope. And I can't see or unfeel, or I remember exactly where I
Mm-hmm.
was, how I felt. It was that pivotal moment. But yeah, it's just, you just know. And when you know, from like just like you and me, we had to hit the restart button,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to just go, whatever
Right.
whatever it
Yep.
took. So Lori, if you can go back in time, what would you tell younger Lori? What would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self to never ignore my gut instinct, no matter what. No matter what people around me are saying, that my body is correct. If it feels like it's wrong, it's wrong. If it feels like it's right, it's right. No matter what someone's telling me opposite of how I feel, which was very hard to do, of course, because of the indoctrination. But if I could do it right now and then send it back and let myself read it, I would make a very strong point of saying, yes, I realize, here I am, 15, 16, 17, reading like something from me at 60 almost now. I realize that right now you're thinking, how is that possible that in so many years you're going to feel this way? That's not possible. We have the truth. No, we don't. Nothing is the truth. There is no absolute. There's no absolute truth. Truth is what you make it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their own version of truth. Every religion has their own version of truth. Every group, every family, everybody has their own version. But I would tell myself to listen to what's inside. That's your truth. So find your own truth and not let anybody else influence you.
Wow, I love that. And what do you wish people knew about leaving and starting over as a
The biggest thing that I would say to somebody is that it's possible. It's not 100% possible. It's 1,000% possible. It is completely possible for you to leave. It doesn't feel like it because you've been in the same place for so long. But not only is it possible to leave, but it's possible to find your own truth, your own authenticity, and to figure out what makes you happy. Because staying in a place where you're unhappy is never, like you just said about being depressed. You're always going to be depressed or full of anxiety. So I would tell people that you're always going to stay. If you're staying in, you're never going to feel good about anything. So it is possible to start over. It is possible to leave. Are there consequences with it? Absolutely. Are there consequences to staying? Absolutely. You have to make the choice though, because staying is one set of consequences of staying in that low frequency and depression and anxiety and guilt and shame. That's a consequence, but you get your family. But then you leave and you lose the family and your friends and the community that you knew. But now you found yourself and you have your freedom and authenticity. And now your body starts to heal even because your health gets better. I mean, you have to make that choice. So there's a consequence for either. Which consequence hurts less?
Hmm.
I mean, maybe both of them hurt equally in different ways.
right?
But which one brings you the most peace and which one brings you the most authenticity so that you can be who you are? Because either way, it's going to hurt.
For me, it was, if I'm gonna go, I have to accept the consequences,
Right.
and I have to have my own back. I have to at least try to have my own back, right? And self-discovery is a journey. Self-healing is a journey, and I
Right.
think that's just. But there's so much beauty in knowing that it's a self-healing journey, and you're going to meet so many incredible people along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a totally different life. It's hard to explain to somebody that's in
Yes.
or even PMO. Once you take that step and basically it's a waking up. You wake up and realize, oh my God, I was in a cult my whole life, in a high control religious cult. There is no going back. You can't unlearn what you learned.
Mm-hmm.
You can't unfeel like that, the calm and the peace and the happiness and the just like contentment of like being in charge of your own life and your own destiny. Like, I would have never dreamed I could be in charge of my own destiny. How could I be in charge of anything? The organization is in charge of everything.
Right.
Well, there's a price tag for both sides. But for me, like, being out on this side is worth, it sounds cold to say it's worth everything that I had to lose, because I mean, no, I mean, I love my family. I still want them to come back into my life again, but I can't go back. I mean,
Right.
you just can't, but it's
You just can't.
it's 1000% possible. You just have to make that decision to do it.
It is just making that decision to do it. You realize you do have a choice. Like you said, like, you're either going to be pain inside because you're awake now and it's painful, or you can be outside and in pain, but at least you're towards healing.
Right. There's going to be a price to pay on both sides, but I will have to say, being out and just having the freedom and peace that I've encountered, like, for the first time in my whole life, there's nothing like it. And you won't know that until you do it. Like, you won't know what it feels like if you're in right now going, but I'm going to lose my whole family. I don't know if I can go through that pain. Once you get to the other side of it, and it's going to, like you said, it's a journey, and it's going to take some time to get through that. Once you get to that other side, there's such a relief that, you can't, there's no price tag on that for me. Like, I can't put a price tag on the peace that I have now. There's just no way.
Well, thank you so much,
Thank you for
Lori.
having me. I loved it. I enjoyed it.
This is such a great interview. Thank you so much for this incredible interview, for your time, for your courage. You're just a great example of courage, of wisdom, and of hope.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking the time with me.
Thank you. So always remember, my friends, to own your story, own your power, and live your truth.